In a remote corner of Africa, surrounded by verdant hills and sandy deserts, lies a small but lively village full of farms and warm family homes. In this cozy place lived a princess named Adan, whose father was the majestic King Chukmeka, the lord of these lands. Adan, the eldest daughter of the chieftain, was known for her kindness and gentleness. She radiated warmth and love to every villager, but despite her inner beauty, she faced a difficult challenge. From an early age, the princess suffered from an unusually strong bodily odor that repelled those around her. This scent, thicker and heavier than usual, only grew stronger over time, becoming the cause of whispers behind her back and shunning from her neighbors. As Adan grew older and became a beautiful woman, even her close friends began to avoid her. Young men, at first admiring her looks and royal descent, retreated as soon as they came within speaking distance. The princess, possessing both beauty and title, faced deep loneliness. She spent most of her time in the seclusion of her castle, dreaming of true love with a man who could accept her with such a feature. One hot summer day, the sounds of a festival awakened Adan's desire to break free from her confinement. The sounds of drums and laughter through an open window lured her to the village square, where the villagers were partying to celebrate the beginning of summer. Hoping to remain unnoticed, the princess joined in the festivities, trying to keep to the shadows. She watched the joy and dancing of her peers until a breeze blew her unique scent among those gathered, causing embarrassment and a search for the source of the foul odor. Suddenly, the joy and rhythm of the dance was cut short, as all eyes turned to the lone figure of Princess Adan. Surprised looks were quickly replaced by skeptical sneers, and the silence was filled with whispers and thin voices mocking her. This turned moments of joy into moments of embarrassment and shame for Adan, who, enveloped in waves of humiliation, hastened to hide from everyone behind the nearest bushes. She found seclusion behind the trunk of a tree, trembling in anticipation of solitude, hoping she would not be found. But soon her ears picked up the steady beat of a drum, the sound growing louder and closer. Through the foliage, she saw a young man from a neighboring village approaching her, playing the drum with a smile on his face. "Why did you stop dancing? You look so joyful and free," he asked, stopping the game. Adan, puzzled by his care and attention, despite her unpleasant scent, answered his questions doubtfully. But the young man, disregarding the evil tongues, encouraged her. "Pay no attention to their words. You are a splendid dancer. Dance for yourself, for happiness and freedom." His words and music awakened a new confidence in Adan. She decided that she would no longer pay attention to the rudeness and ridicule. The young man began to play again, this time choosing a cheerful and optimistic rhythm. Adan, inspired, gradually began to move to the beat of the music. Her movements became more and more confident and graceful, reflecting an inner freedom and joy. As the tempo of the drumbeat quickened, Adan's steps became more determined and effortless. She danced with such passion and ease that she seemed to lift off the ground. This moment freed her soul, allowing her to feel fully accepted and loved as she was, for the first time in a long time. The rhythm pulsed through Adan, filling her heart with elation and energy. Their gazes intertwined, and in that moment, under the watchful eye of the young stranger, she found freedom to fully express her passion for the dance. When their dance ended, Adan and the smiling young man's gazes lingered on each other, filling the princess with a sense of joy and inner freedom. Feeling truly seen and accepted for the first time, their sudden and hearty laughter was a reflection of their shared joy and inspiration. After the laughter died down, the young man introduced himself to Adan as Aaron, saying that he lived in a neighboring village and played drums during local festivals. With enthusiasm and hope, he offered to meet again the next day in the same secluded spot among the bushes to talk and perhaps play for her again. Princess Adan, whose heart was filled with lightness and joy at the suggestion, agreed without hesitation. Despite years of loneliness and isolation due to her odor problem, she found in Arena not only a listener, but a sincere admirer of her talent. Her return home left her in an uplifted and joyful mood, feeling for the first time in years that she had found a true friend. Their meetings became highlights of Adan's life, as she looked forward each day to secluding herself in their secret place. Aaron was always there waiting for her, ready to dazzle her with his drum rhythms. They shared stories, they laughed, and their conversations never dried up. Aaron played for Adan, and his music pushed her to dance with a passion and freedom she had never experienced before. With each passing day, their friendship deepened into warm feelings and mutual admiration. Princess Adan and Aaron discovered that there was more to them than friendship. But Adan faced a dilemma of social norms and expectations that could prevent them from uniting. Despite the differences in their social standing, she dreamed of a future where they could be together, breaking down the barriers that stood between them. The hope of a happy future beside Aaron, who saw and loved her true self, was stirring in her heart, freeing her soul to dance to the rhythm of their shared happiness. One sunny afternoon, as Adan and Aaron sat together as usual, sharing stories and laughter, Aaron suddenly took both of Adan's hands in his. His gaze became deep and full of emotion. With seriousness in his voice, he confessed his feelings, expressing his deep concern and desire to be together with Adan forever. He proposed, dreaming of their union that could unite the two villages into one, regardless of royal traditions and approval. Aaron emphasized that his only desire was to build a life filled with love with Adan. The princess was stunned and overwhelmed with joy at his proposal. Tears of happiness splashed from her eyes, as she never thought she would become the wife of such a wonderful man who was willing to overcome all obstacles for the sake of their love. Adan hugged Aaron tightly, whispering her agreement between their tender kisses. They shared a moment full of excitement and possibility, dreaming of a future together. Deciding it was time to share the news with their families, they planned to ask Adan's parents for their blessing, and then Aaron's village. But suddenly, their happiness was marred by tragedy. A deadly plague began to spread through the countryside, bringing with it fever and skin rashes that turned into large sores. Those who became ill suffered from insanity before dying in terrible agony. In an attempt to stop the epidemic, the chiefs of neighboring villages decided to isolate their villages, trapping the scourge within their territories. Travel between villages was strictly forbidden. If anyone tried to leave their village, they could be quarantined or even executed on the spot. Fear of the plague caused the guards to act ruthlessly. Over time, people fortified their homes, trying not to come into contact with those around them for fear of contagion. Friends and neighbors walled themselves up in their homes, coming out only to buy provisions, then immediately returning back to their isolation. For Princess Adan, this was a period of complete isolation from Aaron, her lover, who was trapped in his home. The plague spared no one, bringing fear and despair into every home, every family. Adan and Aaron could only hope that someone was still alive. Despite the strict isolation in the royal palace, the plague caught up with Princess Adan. She woke up with a fever, and terrible red boils began to cover her skin. Over the next few days, her condition worsened dramatically. The fever did not recede, and the incessant fatigue made the princess so weak that she could not even drink water on her own. The king and queen were desperate to see their daughter suffering. They tried every means available, from traditional prescriptions to the latest medicines, to treat the princess, but nothing worked. Adan's condition grew worse and worse until she looked like a shadow slipping away right before their eyes. Eventually, the queen remembered a forgotten recipe for an elixir once given by a mysterious woman from a distant village. Despite her initial distrust, she asked the royal healer to prepare this potion from bitter roots and blood taken from weak old animals, hoping for a miracle. Carefully pouring the potion into Princess Adan's mouth, no one could have predicted that the very next day she would begin to show signs of recovery. Under continuous supervision and care, this unusual potion, combined with her mother's warm touch, slowly brought Adan back from the depths of her illness. Despite her weakness, the princess survived this terrible ailment that claimed the lives of many from neighboring settlements. Her parents, overwhelmed with gratitude, could not hold back tears as they saw the fever recede and Adan began to come back to life. After a few days of rest and recovery, Adan felt strong enough to get out of bed, though she remained unsteady on her feet after the long days of illness. Walking carefully across the room, leaning against the wall for balance, she approached the mirror. The reflected image made her gasp in surprise. The fever had changed her beyond recognition. Her skin was fresh and firm, as if she had traveled back in time. But the most surprising thing was the disappearance of the chronic body odor that had haunted her all her life. It turned out that illness and feverish sweat had cleansed her skin to such an extent that not a trace of her former scent remained. Excited by this turn of events, Adan laughed, enjoying the freshness of her skin for the first time without a shadow of doubt. She immediately rushed to share the news with her parents, eager to tell them of the miraculous healing that had not only saved her life, but also brought incredible relief from an old burden. When the plague finally receded and the quarantine was lifted, Adan stepped out of the castle gates for the first time in a long time, fearing a reunion with the past. To her surprise, however, this time no one avoided her. The villagers, halted in their daily activities, watched the princess with admiration. Their gazes, full of wonder and admiration at her restored health and beauty, were far from the previous judgmental whispers. The young men especially could not conceal their admiration, watching her every movement with open interest. As Adan walked through her kingdom, she felt a sense of unprecedented confidence and acceptance. The tragedy of the plague and the healing of her long-standing ailment had turned her into something of a celebrity among the villagers, whose admiration and respect seemed almost overwhelming. However, while walking through town, she saw Aaron, which reminded her of her longtime love from whom she had been cut off for so long. Encountering Aaron caused Adan to have mixed feelings. Her heart beat faster at the sight of him, but suddenly doubt gripped her. She wondered if they could continue their relationship now that she was the object of everyone's admiration, standing on the threshold of a new life that seemed to offer more than a simple life with a drummer. When Aaron approached her, his face shone with joy, but Adan, masking his true feelings, took on a formal and detached look. Her reaction to his attempt to embrace her was cold and repulsive, causing Aaron deep pain and bewilderment. Adan explained to Aaron that she no longer saw their future together, arguing that after her illness and sudden transformation, she should seek her place in the higher strata of society, where she felt Aaron could no longer accompany her. Aaron, shocked and hurt by this abrupt rejection, still tried to convince Adan of the sincerity of his feelings, insisting that distance and time had only strengthened his love for her. However, it seemed that Adan had already made her decision, leaving Aaron alone with his pain and broken heart. Gathering all of her will, Adan spoke decisive words, cutting off any hopes Aaron had for their future together. Her voice was icy and her gaze was unyielding. "You should address me as Princess Adan," she said, emphasizing each word as if it were a final decision, non-negotiable. Her words were sharp and cruel, reflecting her intention to put a stop to their relationship. Without a backward glance, she turned away from Aaron, leaving him alone with his pain. In the months that followed, Adan, increasingly immersed in royal life, seemed to forget about Irina, indulging herself in the attentions of numerous noble suitors. They, in turn, showered her with compliments and proposals, reflecting her newfound position in society. While she enjoyed their attentions, deep down, she was feeling hard done by the decision she had made regarding Aaron. King Chukmeka urged Adan to choose a spouse from her circle of admirers, sooner rather than later, anxious to avoid any gossip that might jeopardize her chances of marriage. Wanting the entire selection process to be spectacular, Adan announced a tournament where the most powerful men in the kingdom were to gather to compete for her hand and heart. In anticipation of the tournament, Adan became obsessed with the idea of presenting herself in the best possible way, forgetting basic hygiene in the pursuit of perfection. This neglect led to the return of her old ailment, the body odor she had tried so hard to hide. The day of the tournament turned out to be perfect. Adan stepped out in front of the crowd in her outfit, exquisitely adorned and ready to enchant everyone with her beauty. But despite her outward splendor, her inner struggles and the consequences of her decisions began to show, reminding her that true beauty and values lie deeper than meets the eye. When Adan waved her hand in greeting to the crowd, her joy was quickly replaced by horror. Whispers of displeasure spread among the crowd as people recoiled in disgust at the princess and tried to shield their faces from her piercing odor. The men who had come to fight for her hand shook their heads disappointedly and retreated, preferring distance, and the onlookers quickly dispersed, whispering about the unpleasant incident. Feeling the heavy stare of public condemnation, Adan hurriedly dropped her luxurious robes and jewelry straight into the dust, trying to hide from everyone. But in the crowd, she spotted Aaron, who, unlike the others, looked at her with unwavering kindness and understanding. His gaze was full of compassion, despite her betrayal and vanity. Aaron, ignoring the whispers around him, approached Adan as if trying to share his pain and regret with her. He spoke of how she could so easily forget the depth of their bond, preferring the fleeting admiration of those around them to their true love. Tears filled Adan's eyes as she realized the depth of her mistake. With bitterness in her heart, she confessed her disbelief to Aaron, realizing that true beauty and value lay not in outward splendor, but in the purity and sincerity of her feelings. She admitted her vanity and begged Aaron to forgive her for losing the most precious thing of all, his love and devotion. So in these ancient lands, where every stone and every tree holds age-old secrets. The tale of Princess Adan and her journey to self-discovery and true love has become a legend that will be passed down from generation to generation, reminding us that even in the darkest hour, there is always a ray of light that can melt any shadows and curses.